Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Welcome to Successful Dropout. This podcast is for the outliers, the innovators, the rebels, those that dare to dream and act on their dreams. I'm your host, Kylan Ginger. Join me as we find out what it takes to drop out, grind, and succeed as an entrepreneur. What is up, Successful Dropouts? Get stoked because today on the show we have Daniel Audunsson. Daniel is an entrepreneur dedicated to creating and building success through e-commerce. His focus and expertise is selling on the Amazon platform. Together, him and his business partner, Ryan, have built a massive e-commerce empire focused on selling their own brands through Amazon. They also created a website, ryananddaniel.com, in order to inspire and coach other entrepreneurs who are interested in getting into the e-commerce space. Daniel and his business partner have been featured on Entrepreneur Magazine, The Huffington Post, and Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income. So Daniel, that's the intro I have for you, man, but tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
All right, cool. Thanks for that intro. Yeah, so basically, I am an e-commerce entrepreneur and I focus mostly on Amazon and something called private labeling, which means that I create my own brands, but usually that's a lot easier than it sounds. All you got to do is pretty much find a manufacturer of a certain type of product, and then you can buy the product from them and put your own label or branding on that product. And, then you have your own physical products brand, basically. And that's what I create. I've created multiple of those brands. And then, my main focus is selling them on Amazon. So learning and understanding how to market those products on the Amazon platform, which is the biggest store in the world, basically, for physical products online. So that's what I do.
And how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing this for over 3 years. I started selling books on Kindle, the Kindle platform on Amazon, and I just started publishing very simple guides. I paid people to write different guides on different topics like health and fitness, and even how to technological guides, for things like iPhone and stuff like that. And that's kind of how I got introduced to Amazon and selling on their platform. And then I, scaled into selling actual physical products, and there was no way back for me after that. That's, has higher margins.
You got hooked, huh?
Yeah, I got hooked on that. So that's been my business the last 3.5 years.
So again, just to go a little bit more into private labeling, as far as I understand it, just to explain a little more to our listeners, let's say maybe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say maybe, I assume you deal a little bit more with commodities. And so maybe if I had a mop, or I looked around and maybe I saw a mop, I could go to China, find a manufacturer in China who makes these mops, and basically just come up with a brand name, put my own branding logo on that, and then I can sell that on the Amazon platform. Is that kind of how it works?
Yes, correct. And that gives you a lot of different benefits. Obviously, we always try to come up with something a little bit innovative, or bundle something together, or have some kind of differentiator on our product. Even if it's pretty much the same product that other people are selling, we try to do something to give it a little bit extra, at least package it more nicely or present it more nicely. But what it gives us then on Amazon is a unique product listing. So unique page on Amazon. If you're not selling your own brand, you'll have to compete with a bunch of other sellers that are selling the same thing. And then you essentially compete on price, because you'll have to list the product on the same page that the other sellers are selling at, because each product will only have one page on Amazon. But if you have your own brand, you get your own page. So you have your own asset, and then you can control pricing. You can, drive traffic to that page and do whatever you want, because no one else will be selling that product except you. So it becomes a totally different game, and you can actually create your own assets on Amazon, so to speak, which are your own unique branded products.
So you're looking again for your competitive advantage, I guess you could say, because I guess I look at Amazon and there are like a ridiculous amount of products, like literally anything I can think of. My first thought is like, is it too saturated? How are you still able to, list a product and actually make money on that?
Yeah, so it's really fascinating because that's kind of what people think. And it's a valid question, I'd say, because there are a ton of different products on Amazon. It's just the biggest product catalog in the world. But even if that's the case, there's very few sellers that actually have like a deep understanding of the platform and truly focus on the platform and know how to get the most out of it. Even, for example, like the product page itself, very few sellers actually put enough into that in terms of creating really good images, a really good product description, that kind of stuff. And even then, the back end, which a buyer wouldn't see, but when a seller creates a product listing, there's a lot of different things they need to fill out, like the product information, the keywords they want to use, different, online marketing things that very few sellers actually understand how to do properly. So, once you do understand that and how to do that properly, plus you know how to drive some online advertising to it and stuff, it's still pretty simple. Amazon basically gives you that. They have their own advertising platforms. You can actually purchase advertising on Amazon.com, for example. But knowing these things, pretty easily you have an advantage over the other sellers. And when you have your own listing, your own product, you can make it a little bit more premium, maybe charge a higher price. You all of a sudden, basically can afford to spend more and do more than people that are, basically in a completely different situation than you, trying to sell someone else's product, compete on price. You all of a sudden can do so much more to promote your product and get your product ranked, seen in this vast catalog of products. So, I would say like 99% plus of the products you see that aren't really being marketed effectively. A lot of them will have brand recognition and things like that. So people will recognize the products or just come to Amazon, look for that specific product. But there's also a good number of people that are looking, they just type in a generic search term. They just know they want to buy headphones or something. And then they look at the reviews and the information about the different products and they compare. And if you give them, the best option, so to speak, what looks the most appealing to them, you'll basically win that game. It's very doable.
And reviews, you mentioned, that must have a lot to do with it too, correct?
Yeah. So, that's one big part of the puzzle. That's kind of like one of the main things that converts people, so to speak. So, meaning that out of people that come to your listing or find your listing, like the higher the percentage that actually buy, the higher your conversion rate. And looking at the reviews, that's a big factor for people when it comes to making that decision, whether or not to buy your product or someone else's product.
Now, you're building this business on Amazon's platform, but I imagine since you have your own brands, you might have your own website possibly with products listed. The fact that, obviously I think Amazon's here for the long run, and the whole private labeling thing with, people like you are essentially taking all the risk of finding and sourcing these products for them. And they're taking, obviously, I'm sure taking quite a cut from that. That might not go anywhere for a while, but what are you doing, I guess, to maybe get away from Amazon a bit? Maybe are you siphoning off some customers from Amazon to your own websites, just in case, they can flip a switch and your whole business is gone?
Yes, that's absolutely correct, and a big major concern. And you always want to diversify in business in general, I think, and being too dependent or something that's essentially out of your control, like Amazon is long term, wouldn't be a very smart decision. So we do set up our own websites and own e-commerce stores, mainly through the use of something called Shopify. This is a great e-commerce platform, easy to set up your own store. And yeah, we do build out those businesses, but usually that comes after we have a brand pretty established on Amazon. But yeah, you're also right that there's ways to actually siphon people, so to speak, into your own off Amazon funnels and get them to opt into your email list and stuff. And this can be done through, for example, having like a thank you card inside the packaging of the product, things like this. So you're actually encouraging people to go visit your own website, and then you give them a bribe, so to speak. If you give me your email address, I'll give you this piece of information or a free gift or something like this, and that can allow you to build the most valuable asset you could ever build in an online business, in my opinion, which is a really good email list of targeted people and essentially buyers. That's what you want to build, a list of people that already bought your product, and then you want to do whatever you can to make those people become fans of your products and your brand and repeat buyers. And you can do this even if you're selling, you get the first sales on Amazon, and Amazon is so great because there's so many buyers on Amazon. It's the biggest network of buyers in the world. Amazon has the largest amount of credit cards on file out of any company by far, things like this.
Yeah.
So it's a huge opportunity to get that initial sale.
Now, Daniel, I love to get to the numbers sometimes. Do you mind sharing your monthly revenue numbers with us?
We've actually, kind of decided not to do this, but we've been in the range of, $300,000 plus US dollars per month. But yeah, we kind of like to keep these numbers private at this stage.
So, is this something that pretty much anybody can do, kind of from scratch, or does it take a lot of expertise? You have to learn a lot before you get started. What's the deal there?
I would say this is one of the easiest online businesses to get into, and that's why we've also had so much demand from people in general wanting to learn this, because it's extremely appealing for anyone that wants to start an online business. Because I'm not going to say that it's like you don't have to kind of struggle a little bit and learn and go through normal challenges for any startup. That's just always going to be the case. You're learning something new, you're learning a new skill set, but essentially it can be broken down to very simple and relatively few pieces that you need to learn and understand. And what I've seen is that once people get out of sort of like the overwhelm phase, which I think is very natural for anything when you do it for the first time, once people get out of that and kind of understand what matters and are able to focus only on that, I've seen just the most amazing success stories. People going from nothing to $1 million plus business in less than a year repeatedly. Because once you get it right, it kind of tends to snowball. It's really exciting for new people.
So how big is your operation exactly? How many products do you have?
We do manage over 100 at the moment.
Oh, wow. And these are all under one brand or a few different brands?
That's under many different brands.
And do you have like employees that work for you? Does this take a lot? Because I know that Amazon has the Fulfillment by Amazon deal where they take care of they store your products, they do all the logistics, shipping, customer service and stuff. But I imagine it still takes quite a bit to run, a business of that size. Do you have VAs or anybody helping you?
Yeah. So, funnily enough, we actually have a little bit of a smaller team than we used to have, but, it's just because of like automation and figuring out new ways to, get the most out of each person and things like that. And with this business model, it doesn't require much in terms of employees at all, within a certain size. But we actually had a team of over 50 people at its peak so far, working in the Philippines, in China, and in the US and the UK actually as well, and Germany. So in that operation has become very extensive, but now we kind of scaled back and we have more people virtually based, and I could maybe go into that in one of the lessons that I've learned.
What's the reason for the scale back? Is it just because you're focusing more on like the your coaching and stuff like that?
No, it's really just due to productivity. It's kind of just, I guess, you can get more done with, say, 30 people than you can with 50 people if you do it right. And I think the quality of the people is more important than the quantity. So that's kind of the reason why.
So Daniel, the show is called Successful Dropout. I want you to take us back to your dropout experience and just tell us that story from beginning to end.
All right. So that's kind of a funny story. Kind of a little bit of a crazy story actually. But I was always, I think I'm kind of like the classic entrepreneur that kind of like, maybe rebellious is not the right word, but I've always wanted to do kind of independent things. I was never like a huge fan of school. I've been a huge fan of learning, but kind of that environment always felt constricting to me. So I've always tried a lot of different things. I've grown up, I was always trying different things and things like that. And, I still stuck kind of in the school system and went through high school and college up to a certain point, and I was focusing on psychology. And I remember I took like a semester where I was extremely focused. It was like the first semester with psychology as my major. There's a little bit of a different schooling system in Iceland, but it'd be like that was my major, and I wanted to kind of get really into that and excited. So I gave it my all. I remember that first semester, and I was like one of the highest out of everyone in that school, and like that semester, and did really well. But I just didn't find that like fire that I wanted. I didn't feel that that drive or that excitement or that joy from it that I felt that I should. And I think it was because at the end of the day, I couldn't see myself working like in any of the options that were being presented to us, like as this type of psychologist, this type of psychologist. I find psychology fascinating, but that wasn't motivating enough for me to get to those levels. I felt like I would always be kind of like constricted, and I think it doesn't really go well with my personality. So yeah, I guess I didn't find enough motivation within becoming one of those things that kind of the school laid out in front of me. So yeah, I mean, I started diving into other things like I had done, since I was a kid. I was exploring different options, and I remember probably like a year or so into those studies, I discovered internet marketing, and just the fact that you could sell stuff online. For some reason, that was not really a thing I was ever completely aware of, that you could actually have a business like that that's just based online. So that really fascinated me, because I realized that the freedom that I wanted and the independence, like I could live wherever and travel, and I could even not take so much of my time. So from that I started just becoming extremely fascinated by it, and I felt like this was something that really ignited that fire and that drive that I wanted to feel, that excitement. So, more and more so, I started consuming my time. I kind of didn't tend to my studies. I still went through, probably 2 semesters, and I got to my final one, and then I actually just ended up dropping out like literally 1 month before graduation. I was about to graduate, but just something within me just said, like, this isn't right. This isn't what you want. And I think deep down, like, I just wanted to put that pressure on me and just take that step. I think deep down I felt like it was like a defining point in my life. And by taking this step, I actually discovered a kind of a pressure from myself, like a good type of pressure to actually make my dreams happen. And the social pressure that came with it as well obviously helped. Like my mom, barely would talk to me because she thought it was like I was being crazy. It didn't make any sense. And I heard that from many people, so I was judged a lot for this. And of course, it wouldn't make sense for someone looking at it from the outside. But for me, like internally, like it made a lot of sense.
And during this period of time, so you were already kind of messing around with e-commerce. Were you actually kind of running the business, making a little bit of money while you were still in school?
Yeah. So, I started kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, I think, and I started actually seeing results. And this was, paying people to write these like small amounts, like $100 or something, to write a nice guide on something, and then I would go ahead and publish it on Amazon's Kindle, and I would do some marketing, promote it myself, and I started seeing something coming in, but I actually wasn't at the point where I was making, much money at all. And I had like $50,000 worth of student loans. I had to, live on my own and things like that. So I wasn't in a good place. And that's, where the pressure came from as well. It's like I had to make this work, or it would be like the worst decision of my life, potentially. Right.
Right. And so go into a little bit more about how your friends and family reacted to that. You mentioned your mom wasn't very happy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, now I understand it. Like I felt kind of, like, why don't people support me with, my dreams kind of thing. But I think I wasn't good enough at really communicating those things either. So, understandably, they reacted in a way where, they pretty much felt like I was being a little bit crazy and stupid, really. Like, especially my mother, she had always encouraged me to go to school, and I'm sure she was proud of me for getting that far, and it didn't make sense. And you can imagine also when you're, not from like the computer generation and stuff, it doesn't make any sense that someone would work from anywhere on the internet. Like it doesn't, like me not know that existed like 2 years before or something like this, even less, that was actually possible. I'm sure she'd never heard of such a thing in any capacity. Right. So yeah, she thought I was pretty much crazy, and I heard that from other people as well.
Now, having gone through that experience and knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to anybody listening who's kind of having the same kind of struggle with parents or friends not really understanding, not really supporting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel for you. I feel for, I remember that feeling. And I would say now, knowing what I know, just in general in life as well, and this goes obviously for this then as well, is just be honest, be real, and find the strength within you to speak your truth. Even if your voice is shaking, so to speak, speak your truth and just explain why, and understand that they might not accept it, they might not understand you, but at least you're following your own heart, you're following your own conviction of what you want to do with your life, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. It's that you follow your own heart, and you get to experience life on your own terms, and you get to learn the things you need to learn, and yeah, I mean, just follow your heart, because that is the only thing you can trust, in my opinion. And communication is also all you can do. Try to be real. Try to communicate how you feel. Like this. Try to explain this from like an emotional level, and truly connect with the reasons why you're doing this, instead of like talking about what you're looking to get out of dropping out. Like, I want to become rich or something. Just try to talk about more of your emotional side, and I think people are a lot more likely to connect and be able to understand and be compassionate and support you with, coming from that perspective. If you can connect with them on like an emotional level, like I really feel like this is the right thing for me, and whatever happens, like I need to experience this and take this risk for myself, and I think most people will understand.
Right. Great point. Daniel, what was one of the biggest fears you had dropping out, and how did you overcome that?
I think my biggest fear was honestly just that I would, fail, so to speak, and I would look really stupid. that I would have all this student debt. I would have spent all this time. I even remember like a professor at the college was like disgraced that I was doing this. But I needed to prove something. But yeah, my biggest fear was failing. But it gave me, in terms of like managing that and coping with that, it just gave me, I think, a good amount of pressure. I actually like pressure. It does help me. So for me, at least, it gave me that fuel and that pressure to work day and night, to get it done, to kind of put my back against the wall. So I had to figure a way out. Like I had to kind of fight my way out of that place. And with that drive, and I had no other option, I made it happen. And I think that's kind of how people are. I think we can all create and build amazing things very quickly, but I think we also sometimes need to kind of have no other option than to get something done, and then magic will often happen.
Right. And Daniel, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about what the first 3 or 6 months looked like directly after you dropped out, because that's a crucial time when you're kind of out of the traditional system. Now you're out in the real world. Now what did you do? So tell us a little bit about what your immediate steps were after you left school.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's, probably the most challenging time for most dropouts. And, you can feel kind of overwhelmed and lost. But what I did is, and I'm not necessarily saying this is like the best, or I don't necessarily think this is the best approach necessarily. I think, it's ideally if you're a little bit more balanced than this, but I just worked. Like I just, locked myself in my room or in my little student apartment, which I still had, and just worked. Like I just worked 12, 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day, and just made it happen. I knew what I had to do before I dropped out, and then I just got it done as quickly as possible.
So Daniel, I'd love to move a little bit more into your entrepreneurial journey at this point. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit more about, I forget, it's ryananddaniel.com. Correct? Or is it Daniel and Ryan? Ryan and Daniel.
Ryan and Daniel, yeah.
Yeah, tell me a bit more about that and how that got started. So, I mean, you went from selling the ebooks on Amazon and stuff and transitioned more into physical products, and obviously done very well with that. And so then where did the idea for the website and just kind of giving back come from?
So it came through, I actually got involved with a community of Amazon sellers, and I bought someone else's course on that and learned a lot of things there, and it eventually turned into a community and one of the largest communities like ever formed, to my knowledge, around just any niche within internet marketing. And that happened like a year or two after I got started, but knowing kind of the founders of that, getting to know them on more like a personal level. I was kind of one of the people that were they had a big event and I was put on stage. I was like one of the people that showed other people, inspired other people that this was possible because I had done it. And I was, how old was I? Like 23 at that point. I was a, farm kid from Iceland, so to speak. So if I could do it, anyone could do it, kind of thing. And I really relished that and enjoyed that opportunity to tell my story and inspire other people. And I've been remember giving some lessons like on stage and through some webinars and stuff within that community. And people just really started coming to me for information and asking questions, wanted to know more. So it was something that I truly enjoyed doing. And then I eventually met Ryan at like a special dinner, one of these events, and he's been in online marketing for like 13 years. He knows a lot. So we partnered up on actually creating some information and providing that to people. And eventually we were involved in another course like this. I was one of the creators, and I just kind of got into that world and really enjoyed giving back.
Right.
In that regard as well. And obviously running this business, I'm always learning new things. So with time, I've just become, I guess, known within this community as one of the leaders in the field, and I'm constantly getting messages and requests from people for information and tips and stuff. So I've just kept doing it. I really enjoy it.
And Ryan, you also brought him in on, or you guys partnered up on the Amazon business too, correct?
Yeah, some of it. Some of it I was started on my own and stuff, but then, the main business we partnered up on and the biggest operation, we've been partnered on that as well.
Now, really quick, I'm curious, what's it like working with a business partner? How do you guys find a balance there? Because I've heard, it can be really difficult sometimes. Sometimes it can be a real good thing. You can get kind of twice as much done in the same amount of time. Yeah.
I mean, that's a very good question. I think it's, a tricky situation sometimes. And, I think for me, at least, it's the same as with, any relationship. One is like how well you guys match, but also you got to find the right person. And in my opinion, Ryan is a very honest, upfront person that I trust and that I respect. And I think that is mutual, that feeling. And, we're both good at communicating. Like anytime we have issues, with anything or each other in any regard, we talk. And at the end of the day, Ryan and I are best friends as well. It's, for us at least, helps because that becomes before anything. So, like, I would never let anything to do with business affect our relationship in a negative way. Our friendship comes first. We've actually lived together, or not in the same apartment, but in the same building, like next to each other, in the Philippines for a year. Like, we've spent a lot of time together and just became amazing friends. And I think, at the end of the day, the relationship you have with that person is the most important. And if you can then also complement each other business-wise, so, you have complementary skill sets, but you also have trust. So you are not concerned with, like, am I doing more or less than him, that kind of stuff. You can just focus on what you want to get done, and both of you are 100% at it, focused. I think this kind of combination, is at least in my case, in our case, Ryan and I's case, that has worked.
So does he play, what roles do you guys play then? I mean, usually there's kind of a more visionary, the one kind of leading the charge. And then usually I feel like there's, I'm thinking of like Steve Jobs and Wozniak, so which roles do you guys kind of fall into? I'm curious.
You'd have to ask Ryan as well what he, feels that is like. But I think for me, at least, I would be the visionary, but he also has a lot of vision and ideas. But I'm kind of more of that, like just take the shotgun at like towards my stomach and just pull the trigger kind of thing. I'm a little bit more, more fast acting, and sometimes too, fast acting. But he's more kind of analytical and grounded. So that's in most of the combination that I see there, in terms of like me probably maybe thinking sometimes, very far ahead and having very big vision. And he is more like, he wants to make sure everything is controlled and all the details are, there and things like that. And that's important as well. I would say both are equally important, because without the other, you can, either go nowhere or you can go ahead of yourself, and then everything falls apart. So
absolutely, that's a great combination. So how do you generate revenue right now, personally, between all your different ventures? So we got, obviously our main e-commerce business, which, I think we've explained pretty well here. Right.
But then we do also have our information business, publishing business, which, it's just information on e-commerce and selling on Amazon. And, we haven't released a course in over a year, and we don't really have any plans of doing that. But that's kind of gone into more of like providing free information to our audience. But then sometimes we do take on projects from, I guess, more like a higher level standpoint, because we have a lot of higher level people in businesses now reaching out to us for consulting and stuff. So that's something that I've started doing quite a lot of, and I enjoy immensely because, with the skill set and the knowledge I now have, I'm able to look at someone's business, and in an hour I can provide so much value. I can just give them a couple of different things to action, and it could, have an incredible amount effect on their business, on their revenue, and that's so rewarding. That's kind of like the best use of my skill set in a way. So now it's more like that. We do take on some specific projects that are more high level consulting based things for companies and stuff, and that's really enjoyable.
Now, Daniel, as entrepreneurs, sometimes it's just like a roller coaster, right? Up and down, up and down. I'd love you to tell us about what you would consider to be your worst entrepreneurial moment.
All right. So, this one was definitely, it's definitely a couple, but one stands out to me, and, it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And that was kind of when I had that realization. It took some time, but that we were just overstaffed. We had a lot of people that weren't really pulling their weight, or and things like that. And like they say, the weakest chain in the link is like how strong that chain is. So,
right,
kind of that overexpansion of a part of the team was really damaging the entire thing and slowing everyone down and stuff. So I actually had to make that decision one day to just get about almost 30 people into a room, and I had to fire them all right there.
Oh my gosh.
So that was pretty tough to do, but
oh no.
And it took that entire day just like talking to them in groups, and you have people crying. It sucks. It really sucks because people have families, and it's a big deal, right? So that was a very tough day, I would say.
And so again, that was just in an attempt to, you just realized you had way too many people working. It wasn't efficient. A lot of kind of, you're kind of having to trim the fat, I guess, so to say, become more efficient, cut down on costs and stuff. And so.
Yeah, become leaner. And then, this is kind of like one of my flaws, and it's also one of my pros. But, like I just said before when you asked that question about the difference between Ryan and I tend to go very fast. So I guess the team was almost like a reflection at that point of my vision like 1 or 2 years from now, right, instead of matching reality, right? So we just had to scale back because it was generating overhead. It was generating idle people, like people were sitting idle, and it just overall had a bad effect on the team. And it came that time where we had that realization, and it had to be done. And
so now, having learned from that, I guess, what are you doing differently moving forward? What was kind of the lesson you learned there?
The lesson I learned, I would say, is just it's a little bit more intricate, I guess, but essentially, and this is also like a personal lesson, but essentially it was just about the fact that, most people spend 80% of their time doing things that don't really matter, or something like this, So, if you really look at what you're doing, probably like 20% of that, those activities are getting you 80% of the results. So you could spend 20% of your time instead of 100% right now, and probably get still the 80% of the results. So it's about looking at that and eliminating that, that wasted time. It's stuff that you might think or feel like you should do, but it's really just, you're being busy. And I was looking at our team, and like everyone is on their computer doing stuff, but at the same time, I'm looking at, what's coming out of that team, and 20% of the people are doing 80% of the stuff that matters.
Right.
That's the aha moment, I would say. And it's the same for us personally. If you look at what we're doing, I think most of us will discover that that's the case.
Now, on the flip side, what was an experience you had during your entrepreneurial journey that was just kind of I guess what you just said, the aha moment, or kind of the height of the experience there? Tell us a story about that.
Okay, so I guess I guess what I have on that is kind of basically related to this. Ironically, it's kind of like around this time. Yeah, it's like I remember I was sitting at a seminar, and there's this guy that is really cool dude. He's like a very easygoing type of guy, and I've noticed a lot of the most successful people that I know are also like the most easygoing and the most carefree, like in terms of the personality. Yeah, they're very dedicated to their craft, and they're very hardworking for sure. But there's just like this aura about them where it's like they don't really care too much. And just think of someone like Richard Branson, like that kind of aura, kind of like
Right.
surfer dudes, easygoing. And from that, I kind of I was fascinated. Why is this the case? Why is this guy, this type of personality, but he's one of the most successful people I know, and marketers that I respect, super creative, like a genius type of person. And it just came down to the same thing again. Like, this guy understands that he doesn't have to do a whole lot of stuff to get the results he's really after. And he's able to strategically look at what needs to get done, what generates results, and create these really amazing plans that just only consist of things that need to happen. He's also very good at automation, delegating the right things, but only focusing on results. And he doesn't have to stress a lot. It's this mentality, right?
Right.
I think of abundance and just like, not thinking that you have to stress so much and do so much to get, a lot back. You just need to provide value and do the right things. And that was kind of like related to that. But I just remember when I realized that this was probably the main reason why this guy is so successful.
That's so true. And that's been kind of a theme recently, just even in my life. And Successful Dropouts, just something to understand is that a lot of people fall into this trap of working so much, and all they are is just busy instead of actually productive. And so an exercise that I like to go through that works really well for me is to first get really clear on what it is you want, right? So what you want to be, what you want to do, what you want to have. And once you're clear on that, the next step is to eliminate everything in your life that doesn't help you reach what you want. And I'm talking, everything from, relationships, apps you waste time on your phone, tasks you do on a daily basis, and just focus on only the things that help you reach that goal. And then the third step is, out of those things you decide to focus on, like you just said, Daniel, what can you automate? What can you delegate and pass off? And the result of that exercise is that you end up reaching your goals a lot faster, and you have more time on your hands, which is just a crazy thing, but that's the result you experience. And so a very, very good habit to get into early on, because like you said early on, you just worked. And there's a lot of work that has to go into more of a startup and stuff. There's, I guess, a season for that. But if you can learn this principle early on, you're going to save yourself a lot. Just one of the number one regrets, people who are dying, that, they say, I wish I hadn't worked so much. Nobody ever says, I wish I would have worked more on their deathbed, right?
Yeah, and one great tool as well to add to this, I guess, is if you look at your day. This helped me a lot. And you write down all the activities you're doing. And a good way to work, in my opinion, is to eliminate these distractions and stuff. Because you can spend a lot of time on Facebook every day if you want to, but don't do it while you're working. Just block out like 90 minutes, like 2 to 3 blocks of 90 minutes, and you're not doing anything except working on things that matter. You'll be way more successful, way quicker than most people. And if you write down the things you're doing each day, like basically like, for every hour you give it something, like something you're doing. And then you just give it, at the end of the day, you give it like a monetary value. This is what I do at the end of every day. And I'm like, okay, looking at this hour, I spent this time, in this meeting, maybe closing this deal. This was worth $10,000 for me right here. And if you go through this, you'll see like when you're spending time on something that really isn't worth more than like $100, maybe you spend an entire hour on that, and it doesn't make sense like compared to the other things. And you can, from this exercise, you can learn how to actually focus only on those things that bring in that, that higher amount, that higher value, so to speak. And the smaller things might still need to happen, but at least you can safely say that if it's worth $100 and you spent an entire hour on that, it would be worth your time to delegate that to someone else. So you can identify all the different things that you don't have to be doing because it's not worth your time. If you want to earn a certain amount, you need to spend your time on, enough value to bring that in, or it's just not going to happen.
Right. Great point. Daniel, if you could time travel back to day one of your entrepreneurial journey and have 10 minutes with your former self to communicate any lessons you've acquired with the intention of saving yourself mistakes and heartache, what would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself to, probably relax a bit. And, because I'm probably like an A-type person, I'm pretty sure I am by nature, but I think patience, is a virtue that very few young people have.
Yep.
And I think, but I think there's a reason why, the older you get, the more that you usually have. And it's just, that it's not about doing so many different things. It's not about urgency. It's not about that it has to happen within, 2 weeks. It's about consistent action and persistence and focus and consistent improvements over time. That's what's going to lead to stunning results. So if you keep on plugging away, doing very valuable things and also just mastering what you're doing, you need to choose something and you need to just spend enough time and enough energy and enough quality time on that thing to become a master at it, and then everything else will fall into place. So, even if I feel like I've been pretty, focused on my journey, I still know that if I would have been even more focused and even more certain on, about those things that are really, connect with me at my core, then I would be much farther ahead, today, because that's what always comes back. That's what really matters, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So Daniel, what would you say is a personal habit that contributes to your success?
One of the habits that I think are the most valuable for me is simply, it's kind of like meditation, but at the start of each day I do take out like an hour, 30 minutes to an hour to just connect with myself and just be positive, kind of like speak out some positive things, take a shower, maybe go for a little walk. I like to wake up very early, but even then it might be nice to take a little walk and just think positive things, think about the things I want to achieve like long term, visualize those, how that's going to feel, and also just connect with myself. And one of the ways I like to do that is that I like to just kind of like tap my heart a bit, and I feel like that kind of ignites some positive energy and just think positive things, loving thoughts, and be grateful for what I have, that kind of stuff.
What's a quality that you have that you would consider essential to being an entrepreneur, like a quality or an attribute?
So I mean, for me, I think one of the qualities that I have is that I'm pretty brave, pretty daring. I was actually featured in an article in BBC called "The Millionaire Daredevils." As a person that kind of exemplifies that, I guess. But I'm not afraid to take action, and I like feeling afraid because then I know that I've found something, like an area that I can actually, go and kind of expand my comfort zone on, and it's a certain type of feeling that excites me, and I've learned that, not to be afraid, and if you face fear, like fear will actually run away from you instead of towards you.
Yeah, and back to what you were saying, the difference between you and Ryan. I think I'd probably be a little bit more like Ryan. I feel a little bit more grounded. I like to make sure things are good here before I move on, and that's my entrepreneurial journey. That's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned, Daniel, is you have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. I mean, right? I mean, it's just it's essential for an entrepreneur to be comfortable being uncomfortable and to take those
Mm-hmm.
risks. And in some ways, I'm jealous of people like you that just seem to, I mean, you love it. You love being uncomfortable. You love the fear, being pushed up against, the wall and just having to fight your way out and that's a learned skill for me. And if anybody else is listening
Mm-hmm.
and they're kind of like me where it's, I enjoy my security. I like to know like where my next paycheck is going to come from. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you can't always know that. And it's definitely a journey for me to learn that lesson. So
yeah, and you can be successful either way. That's the great thing. You just gotta learn how to leverage your strengths and kind of improve on your downsides. Because I have my huge flaws as well.
what's a business book that you would recommend to us and why?
So this is not really, I guess, a business book, but I really want to recommend a pretty unknown book that I think is just fascinating, and very few people actually know about, and it's called How to Get Lucky. And this book is basically about, I can find the author here, I actually have it in my back, but this book is basically just about a couple of principles, 13 techniques for discovering and taking advantage of life's good breaks, and just about kind of like the role that luck plays in life, because I think it does play a very underestimated role in our lives. And I think just becoming comfortable with that uncertainty that it is actually real in our lives, and learning kind of how to, position yourself in life so that you're more likely to get lucky is incredibly valuable and something people never talk about. It's by a person named Max Gunther, and it's definitely going to be on Amazon.com.
Okay, so How to Get Lucky by Max Gunther. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. What's an internet resource that you would recommend to us?
So my favorite internet resource is something that's called Focus at Will. And if you know about that.
Yeah, I was using it yesterday. It's great.
Nice. Yeah, it's cool. It's awesome because it's like, I think a lot of people like to use, listen to music while they work, especially young people. And this is like, a software application that has music that's specifically designed to increase your focus. And there's like, I prefer the up-tempo track, and it's kind of like, electronic dance music, but it doesn't have any vocals or anything. It just is that beat that kind of, helps you focus. I love it.
Yeah, I think my favorite is the classical channel, and man, it's amazing. I turn that thing on, and I just kind of get tunnel vision for a couple hours. Look up and realize, oh wow.
Yeah.
So Daniel, I'm curious, what's next for you? What's your next big goal?
That's a very good question. I got a couple of goals, but I actually, want to give more. One of the things I've been connecting with is that I do want to provide a lot more free information and free stuff. I just want to help people. I do enjoy that tremendously. So one of my big goals, let's say within the next year, is to reach a point where I have a much larger audience that's aware of my stuff and this type of business and model, and they're able to, there's more stuff by me available for free online, so people can actually consume that information and do this on their own. That's a big goal for me.
Awesome. What advice do you have for our listeners who are thinking of dropping out to be an entrepreneur, but they haven't quite made that step yet?
I would say, first off, don't drop out just to drop out. I would just connect with, with the reason you're wanting to drop out. Dropping out would be a great thing. I think dropping out can also be the wrong thing. It just depends on, where you're at and where you want to get. But don't stay in school because of fear. Don't stay in school because you are afraid to leave your comfort zone, so to speak. I would only stay in school if you feel like that knowledge that you're getting is going to be worth it for you, and it's going to take you on a journey in life where you're going to be fulfilled, you're going to be excited, and you're going to, grow. It's going to help you become something you're going to be very proud of, and the person you want to be. That would be my answer, I think. But if you don't think it's going to do that for you, then you're not doing the right thing, because you can do something that's going to be an incredible journey, and it's going to fulfill you very deeply in your life. So find that.
Right. Good word. What advice do you have for our listeners who have already dropped out and who are on their entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. So I would say, focus on your craft first. So don't focus on, and I know this, maybe it's a little bit cliche or something, but I more and more come to this conclusion that it's not about, having the best branding or having the best marketing. Marketing is overrated in a way. It's all about, having the best product and being the best at what you do. Whatever it is you want to provide, focus on helping people, focus on creating something of the greatest possible value. Because just think of it this way: if you do create something that's immensely valuable for people, you will just be flooded with, all the riches and stuff you could ever want. That's just true. So if you can do that, it might take some time, but if you can become an absolute master at whatever it is you do or want to provide, then you will have reached your goal, I'm sure.
What's the best way that people can connect with you? And you mentioned that you might have a gift for us.
Yeah, so I'm actually, the best way for people to connect with me and just kind of follow me as a person and see some free information and stuff would be to just go to danielfacebook.com, and that's a URL that I actually have to redirect people to my Facebook page, which is open, public. It is, the URL of Facebook is so long, so I just tell people to go to danielfacebook.com, and you go there, and there you can find my website and everything like that. And then I do also have a free gift at ryanandDaniel.com/successful dropout. And that's going to be like a 10-step cheat sheet for Amazon that you can go through if you want to see, just get an idea of how this business model works that I do, and what it takes to get started.
Awesome. So ryanandDaniel.com/successful dropout. We'll have all those links in the show notes. Successful Dropouts, you've been hanging out with Daniel and Kylan, learning what it takes to drop out, grind, and succeed as an entrepreneur. For everything we talked about today, head over to successfuldropout.com and type Daniel into the search bar, and the show notes will pop right up. And as always, stay hungry, stay foolish. For more information about how to drop out, grind, and succeed, go to successfuldropout.com. I also love questions. If you have a question about anything we talked about today, I want to hear from you. Go to successfuldropout.com and click the Ask Me a Question link at the top of the page. Successful Dropouts, if you could go to iTunes and leave a positive rating and review, it would help this show out a lot. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on. But if you do that, it helps this podcast rank. It helps other people listen to it and gain value just like you have been. Thank you so much in advance.